In the quiet, sun-kissed village of Kwagido, nestled between swaying palm trees and red earth paths, lived a 15-year-old girl named Adamma. She was known for her bright eyes, quick smile, and a heart full of dreams. Everyone in the village admired her, not just for her beauty, but for the kindness she showed to everyone she met. But behind her cheerful face was a life far more painful than most could see. Adamma lived with her father, Obinna, a once joyful man who had grown quiet over the years, and her stepmother, Nkiru, a woman who never truly looked at her without bitterness in her eyes. Adamma's real mother had died giving birth to her, and though she never got to know her, Adamma often wondered if she had her mother's voice or her laugh. She missed someone she had never met, a deep ache she carried quietly. From the day Nkiru entered their home, she made it clear that Adamma was not hers to love. She never hugged her, never called her by sweet names, and often treated her more like a servant than a daughter. Still, Adamma tried. Every morning she swept the compound, helped with cooking, and brought water from the stream with a hope in her chest. Maybe today would be the day her stepmother would smile at her, or even just say, "Thank you." But that day never came. Even when Nkiru ignored her or scolded her unfairly, Adamma didn't talk back. She believed that if she kept being kind, her stepmother's heart might soften. She believed love was something that could grow, even in hard places. And though she often cried in silence at night, she never stopped trying, because deep down, Adamma believed that even the smallest seed of love, if watered with patience, could someday grow into something beautiful. From the outside, it looked like a normal home, a father, a stepmother, 2 daughters. But inside, something colder than silence lived in the spaces between Adamma and Nkiru. No matter how hard Adamma worked, no matter how gently she spoke, Nkiru never treated her like family. To her, Adamma was just the girl who cooked, cleaned, and stayed out of the way. But the truth ran deeper than chores. Nkiru couldn't stand the way people in the village looked at Adamma with love and pride. They praised her beauty, her glowing skin, her bright eyes, the way she carried herself like someone born of light. They praised her brains, always top of her class, always eager to learn. And they praised her heart, so full of grace and respect, even when treated unfairly. Nkiru heard the whispers, "That girl is special, she'll go far." And every word felt like a thorn in her pride. Her own daughter, Tomi, was different. She struggled in school, got easily distracted, and didn't carry the same charm. Nkiru tried to lift Tomi up, but her pride kept comparing her to Adamma. And in that bitter comparison, a quiet hatred started to grow. At first it was small, a harsh word here, a punishment there. But over time, Nkiru's actions became sharper, colder. She would give Adamma the hardest chores and take away her free time. She gave Tomi the best food and left Adamma with scraps. She dressed Tomi in bright clothes and gave Adamma old, faded ones. Even when Adamma did something wonderful, Nkiru acted like it didn't matter. Adamma noticed, of course, but she never said a word. She still smiled, still helped, still hoped. But Nkiru's heart was poisoned by something she wouldn't admit: jealousy. She didn't just dislike Adamma, she feared what Adamma represented: beauty without effort, strength without anger, love that didn't need approval. And every time the villagers looked at Adamma with pride, it felt like a reminder to Nkiru of everything she wished she was, and everything she feared her own daughter could never be. In the quiet of their home, where only walls listened, Nkiru's silence screamed with envy. And in that darkness, something dangerous began to form. A plan, a thought, a question whispered to herself. What if she was gone? Obinna was once a strong man. People in Kwagido remembered him as the one who laughed the loudest, who lifted heavy loads with ease, who stood tall like the palm trees that lined the village roads. But that man seemed to fade over time. Since his wife died, something inside him broke, and when he married Nkiru, it never came back. Now Obinna mostly stayed quiet. He sat in the corner of the compound with faraway eyes, nodding along to whatever Nkiru said, rarely raising his voice, rarely standing up when it mattered. The strength he once had didn't live in his muscles anymore. It had been taken from his heart. He saw the way Nkiru treated Adamma. He heard the harsh words, saw the heavy chores, the tired eyes of his daughter trying to stay strong. He wasn't blind, he wasn't deaf, but he chose silence. He chose peace, or at least something that looked like peace. Sometimes at night, he would sit alone and stare at the moon. Maybe he thought of the wife he lost, the promises he made, the daughter they brought into the world. Maybe guilt pressed on his chest like a weight too heavy to lift, but still, he said nothing. Adamma noticed, of course. She always noticed. She would steal glances at her father, hoping for a smile, a kind word, a moment of rescue, but instead, she got soft sighs and lowered eyes. Still, she didn't hate him. She couldn't. Somewhere deep inside, she believed her father still loved her, even if he had forgotten how to show it. She told herself stories in her heart. Maybe he's just scared. Maybe he's tired. Maybe one day he'll speak up for me. And so, she carried on, doing her chores, studying hard, wiping her tears when no one was watching. All she ever wanted was for him to see her, truly see her, and say, "You matter to me." But day after day, all she got was silence. And sometimes, silence can be louder than any scream. The Festival of Rivers was the most special time of the year in Kwagido. The whole village came alive with music, dancing, colourful clothes, and the smell of sweet, spicy food in the air. It was a day of joy and blessings, when the people thanked the river for life, for harvest, and for peace. Every year, one girl was chosen to perform the blessing dance, a girl who represented beauty, grace, and purity of heart. This year, that girl was Adamma. When her name was called, the crowd cheered. Women clapped their hands, men nodded in approval, and children ran to get a closer look. Adamma stood in the centre, dressed in white, with beads around her neck, her feet bare against the warm earth. As the drums played, she moved like the river itself, soft, flowing, powerful. Her smile lit up the crowd. Her presence stole every eye. In that moment, Adamma was more than a girl. She was a symbol of hope, of everything good that still lived in the village. But not everyone clapped. Nkiru stood in the back, her arms crossed, her jaw tight. Her own daughter Tommy had not even been considered. No one looked her way. No one spoke her name. All eyes were on Adamma, the girl Nkiru wished never existed. Each cheer for Adamma felt like a slap. Each drumbeat echoed like a reminder. She's everything your daughter isn't. That night, Nkiru couldn't sleep. She sat alone, staring into the darkness, her heart boiling with shame and bitterness. She replayed the dance in her mind, the way the villagers adored Adamma, the way Obina's eyes secretly filled with pride. It was too much. She's taking everything, Nkiru whispered to herself. Their love, their praise, even my peace. Then, like a cold wind passing through her soul, a thought came, a cruel, quiet thought. I'll end her story. She didn't say it loud. She didn't need to. The words, once spoken, sank into her heart like poison. And from that moment on, Nkiru no longer wanted Adamma to simply suffer. She wanted her gone. That morning, the sky over Kwagido was soft and blue, the kind that made everything feel calm. Birds sang gently in the trees, and the village slowly came to life. Adamma was sweeping the compound when she heard something strange, her name spoken gently. Adamma, Nkiru called. Adamma paused, confused. Her stepmother had never said her name like that before, soft, almost sweet. She turned around slowly, heart beating a little faster. Nkiru stood by the doorway, holding a clay pot in her hands. Please, take this and go fetch water from the deep well, Nkiru said with a small smile. Adamma blinked, unsure if she heard correctly. The deep well? She asked, surprised. Yes, Nkiru nodded. The water there is cooler, better for drinking. I want to cook something nice today. It was the first time Nkiru had ever spoken to her kindly, the first time she had asked, not ordered. Adamma's heart filled with a strange warmth. Maybe things were finally changing. Maybe her prayers had been heard. She took the pot gently and smiled back. Yes, Ma, she said, her voice soft with hope. As she walked down the narrow path toward the deep well, her footsteps were lighter than usual. She noticed the beauty of the morning, the way the sun kissed the leaves, the way the air smelled fresh. She even hummed a little tune to herself, holding the pot close. She thought about the blessing dance, the cheers of the crowd, her father's proud eyes. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. She had no idea that behind her, Nkiru was following, quiet, hidden in the trees, her eyes cold and steady. The deep well stood alone at the edge of the village, surrounded by thick bush and silence. Not many people used it anymore. Most preferred the closer stream, but Adamma didn't question it. She placed the pot beside the well, leaned over slowly, reaching for the rope. That's when it happened. And in that single moment, just before the push, Adamma still believed she was finally being loved. She had no idea it was all a lie, a trap, set with a smile. Adamma leaned over the edge of the deep well, her fingers gripping the rope as she prepared to lower the pot. The cool morning air brushed against her face, and for a moment, everything felt still, peaceful, almost beautiful. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her. She didn't feel the danger creeping closer. Then, a sudden, hard push. Before she could scream a full word, her body tipped forward. Her hands flew out, trying to grab something, anything, but there was nothing, just air. And then the cold, cruel grip of the deep well pulling her down. Her scream echoed as she fell, a sharp, panicked sound swallowed by darkness. The water was icy. It hit her like a slap, knocking the breath from her lungs. She sank, then kicked up, gasping as her head broke the surface. Her fingers clawed at the slippery stone walls, but there was no way up. The walls were too smooth, too wet. She shouted for help, over and over, but the only answer was the echo of her own voice bouncing off the stone. Above, Nkiru stood for just a moment, staring into the dark. No regret, no fear, just silence. Then she turned, picked up the empty pot, and walked away, slowly, calmly, like nothing had happened. By the time she reached home, she was crying. Fake tears, of course. She ran away, she told Obinna. I sent her to fetch water and she never came back. I looked, I called, but she's gone. Obinna fell to his knees, shaking, broken. He wept into his hands, guilt crashing down on him like a storm. My daughter, my Adamma. But the villagers weren't so sure. She would never run, one woman whispered. Not Adamma. Something's not right, another said. That well is too far. Why send her there? Suspicion grew like smoke in the air. People looked at Nkiru with narrowed eyes, but no one had proof. No one saw what happened. And down in that cold, dark well, Adamma clung to the edge, her fingers bleeding, her body shivering, her heart pounding. She was still alive, but no one knew. Not yet. 2 full days passed. The sun rose and fell over Kwagido, but for Adamma, the world had become nothing but darkness, cold water, and silence. Down in that deep well, she held on, to a small crack in the stone, to her breath, to her prayers. Her fingers were torn, her body numb, but her spirit refused to give up. She whispered to herself in the darkness over and over, I will live. I will not die here. God, please, help me. Back in the village, life continued, but something felt wrong. Too quiet, too heavy. The air was thick with worry. Some believed Adamma had truly run away, but many others doubted it. They had seen her heart. They had seen her love. She wouldn't have left without a word. Then, at dawn on the 3rd day, something incredible happened. A young boy from a nearby village had come to the deep well to fetch water. He was humming to himself, enjoying the cool morning air, when he heard it, a faint, broken cry. Help! Help me! He froze. At first, he thought it was his mind playing tricks, but then he heard it again, clearer this time, desperate, weak. Please, I'm down here. He dropped his pot and ran toward the well. He peered in, and what he saw nearly made his heart stop. There, clinging to the side, soaked and shaking but still alive, was Adamma. Someone's inside, he shouted. She's alive! Adamma's alive! The news spread through the village like wildfire. People dropped what they were doing and ran. Men brought ropes, women brought blankets, and children stood wide-eyed, watching. They pulled her out slowly, gently, as if lifting something sacred. And when she finally touched the earth again, the whole village gasped. Adamma was alive. Tears filled the eyes of even the strongest men. Women wailed with joy. She was wrapped in warm cloth, held like a treasure returned from the dead. Her lips were cracked, her voice barely there, but she smiled. She had survived, with nothing but her will, her prayers, and her unbreakable spirit. Nkiru stood at the back of the crowd, pale, frozen. She didn't speak. She couldn't. Her lie had shattered. Her plan had failed. And Adamma, the girl who had been thrown away, had come back, alive and stronger than ever. The day after Adamma was rescued, the village square was filled with people. The air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Everyone wanted to hear what had happened, where she had been, how she had survived. But most of all, they wanted to know the truth. Adamma sat on a mat, weak but calm. her voice soft but steady. Her eyes held no hate, only pain and truth. She looked at the elders, then at the crowd, and slowly she spoke. She asked me to fetch water, Adamma began. She smiled at me, called me kindly. I thought maybe she had changed. I thought maybe she finally cared. But when I leaned over the well, she pushed me. The crowd gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others clenched their fists. The silence was sharp. She left me there, in the dark. I screamed. I cried. But she never came back. All eyes turned to Nkiru, who stood frozen near the back, trembling. The elders called her forward. She tried to deny it, her voice shaking. But when they asked again and again, her walls broke. It wasn't me. It was the devil, she cried. She always outshined my daughter. I lost control. I didn't mean to do it. But no one pitied her. Not anymore. You meant to kill a child, one elder said firmly. Your husband's child. A girl who only ever showed love. The decision was made. Nkiru was banished from Kwagido. She was given only enough to leave with and told never to return. As she walked away, no one followed. No one cried. Obinna, broken and ashamed, fell to his knees before Adamma. His voice cracked as he wept. I failed you, he said. I saw everything, and I stayed silent. Please forgive me, my daughter. Adamma looked at him, tears filling her eyes. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she touched his hand. I never stopped hoping you'd come back, she whispered. I forgive you, but never forget me again. The villagers watched in silence, many crying openly. That day, Adamma didn't just survive. She rose, and the truth, finally spoken, set her free. Months passed, and life in Kwagido slowly returned to normal. But for Adamma, nothing would ever be the same again. She had been through darkness, betrayal, and pain, but she had survived. Not just with her body, but with her spirit, stronger than ever. A kind schoolteacher named Miss Ifeoma heard about what had happened. She came to visit Adamma, sat beside her, and held her hand like a mother would. You're special, she said gently. The world needs to hear your story. And just like that, she took Adamma into her home, treated her like her own daughter, and sent her back to school. Adamma worked harder than ever before. Her books became her escape, her pen a weapon of healing. She studied through the nights, fueled by every memory, every scar. Her pain became her power. She started writing essays about abuse, about silence, about hope, and people listened. Soon she won a scholarship to study in the city, then another, and then an invitation to speak at a youth conference. Standing on a big stage for the first time, Adamma held a microphone with shaking hands, but her voice was clear as she told her story. The well, the darkness, the push, the prayers, and the miracle. People cried, people clapped, and more than anything, people were moved. From that day, she was no longer just Adamma from Kwagido. She became a voice for the voiceless. She spoke in towns, schools, radio stations, even on TV. Survivors wrote to her. Children reached out. She listened. She answered. She showed them they were not alone. Then, with the help of kind donors and brave volunteers, she built something bigger than herself. A foundation called Voices from the Well, a place where abused children could find safety, support, and love. A place where no one would ever be pushed away again. Every room in that centre carried her story, and every child who walked through its doors knew, if Adamma could rise again, so could they. She had once been thrown into a well to be forgotten, but now she had climbed higher than anyone ever expected. She didn't just survive, she became the light. Years later, Adamma returned to the village of Kwagido, not with anger in her heart, but with purpose in her hands. She didn't come back to seek revenge. She came back to give something no one expected, hope. The villagers couldn't believe it when they saw her stepping out of the car. She had grown into a graceful young woman, confident, smiling, dressed in soft colours that matched the kindness in her eyes. Children ran to her, elders stood with pride, and whispers of "Adamma is back" echoed through the village like music. But this time, she didn't come alone. She brought books. She brought plans. She brought builders. Adamma had returned to build something her village never had. A school for girls. A place where every girl, no matter how poor, no matter how forgotten, could learn, dream, and rise. The village gathered as the first bricks were laid. Obinna, now an old man with tired eyes, held her hand tightly. He had never forgiven himself, But Adamma had already done so long ago. She walked quietly to the edge of the deep well, the same one she was pushed into years ago, the same one that had tried to silence her. She stood there for a long moment, looking down. Then, with a soft smile, she said, "This was where I was thrown away, and where I found my strength." The crowd stood in silence, many with tears in their eyes. In that moment, they didn't just see a girl who survived. They saw a woman who came back to heal. And in doing so, she lifted an entire village with her.